Self-Management Week. Co-designing a toolkit for epilepsy self-management. Zoë Prosser, Participatory Design Practitioner and Lecturer. Lorraine Jackson, William Quarrier Epilepsy Centre Manager. Follow us on X at selfmgmtscot, Health and Social Care Alliance Scotland.
We did have some other key findings that I'll just share, because I think a lot of these, although they're epilepsy specific, I think are quite shared across different long-term conditions. So I guess in terms of our first finding, there was a lack of sort of post-diagnosis guidance. I think almost everybody talked about going through diagnosis and then after that process feeling quite lost as to where to find local support or what was the right support to be trying to access at the right times. Self-managed support for people with epilepsy was also hard to find without the signposting and referrals. And again, I think that came down to some of the language. So that meant that things were also not equally accessible at a local level. I think everyone who works in sort of public services will know, different local authorities have different support going on. And yeah, one area is going to have more than another. But finding that support at a local level was quite challenging. I thought this one was really interesting, that mental health and sort of more holistic well-being beyond just condition management was one of the most valued and impactful forms of self-management. So just looking after your mental well-being and happiness, a lot of people talked about that more than condition management. That self-management was also different for everyone, but sharing the lived experiences and socializing as a community was one of the things that also most people talked about as being extremely helpful for well-being. And our last couple of findings was just that friends and family of people with epilepsy required more guidance and support, and also to increase their confidence and well-being. And a lot of people talked about sort of overprotectiveness or families not knowing how to support or when to, I guess, enable safe risk management as well, and being confident. So yeah, that was a really interesting one, is what role does family and friends play in all of this, and how are they supported to feel confident? That also filtered into organisations and workplaces. A lot of people talked about the services and communities around them not knowing how to engage in supported self-management, and that kind of in turn reduced confidence. So yeah, a lot of people talked about, going into supermarkets or corner shops or just going out into the world and not feeling as if people are aware of epilepsy as a condition or how to support that. And then I think our bigger one was about wider stigma and preventing that kind of public awareness. It was really interesting. I think a lot of people talked about certain long-term conditions get a lot of, I guess, coverage and attention, whereas others don't. And we don't know why that is, but epilepsy certainly felt like one of those conditions where there wasn't a lot of wider awareness. And so it was hoped that the toolkit could be that visual space to try and change that a little bit. I think also just on the kind of wider support needs at that journey level, we looked at really specific moments in that journey that need more self-management. Again, I won't go into all of them, but I'll just pull out maybe a few that were really interesting. So I think particularly for young people transitioning into adulthood, there was a lot of really specific self-management that was needed, or just support to help young people try and gain independence as they're transitioning to adulthood. That really came out quite a lot. And also that kind of having a negative experience really lowers the confidence to go out and do more things. So that was really important to be able to work through that. Okay, yeah, if anyone wants to pull out any of these for later discussion, that'd be great. Yes, and then in the phase 2, so this was us kind of developing the toolkit. I think again, this was a good reflection that helped everyone get on the same page, was really thinking about what the design direction was. So what should this resource do and what should this resource not do? So again, this took a little bit of discussion and we reviewed this during the focus groups. So we really wanted it to increase people's ability to discover what works best for them and not take a one-size-fits-all approach. So it was really about creating a resource that could grow, but could also be searched through, tried. We wanted to focus on social well-being and mental health guidance by sharing lived experiences of people. There was a lot of conversation about creating community and knowledge exchange. So it was really important that this resource had the voice of the community because that's who created it, and that we follow that ambition. That it was about creating holistic knowledge across journeys of well-being and not necessarily just at specific points. That we wanted to signpost all of the existing resources that already were there instead of creating new resources and duplicating efforts. We did create some new resources as well. And it needed to be something that was going to be friendly and supportive, but also something that could be grown and developed over time. So it's really important that the toolkit is a structure that can be evolved, which is how it's been presented now. So I'll just go into the second phase. You're seeing a lot of numbers there, but just to sort of outline that the development phase was probably the most challenging because we were trying to create a digital resource and bring all of these things together. We did a lot more engagement because we really had to refine and check that we were putting the right resources in the right places. And we also worked with carers and families a bit more in this phase as well because we found them quite difficult to reach in the first phase. So one of the things we did was we went back to those indicators that we were evolving of self-management and we just mapped all of the resources that we had onto them, which sort of formed the basis of the toolkit itself. And then so it was really important that we could talk about people's experiences, but in a safe and anonymous way. So everybody who discussed their journey and had consented to that being shared, what we did was we combined those stories into anonymous personas. So if anyone's gone through a design process, it's quite a common tool to use. It's basically a fictional character that's representative of other people's experiences, but you've anonymized it to the point that no one can be identified from this character. And we created 3 characters, each one representing a different arrangement of kind of indicators, needs for self-management. So we had Jill, who was a single parent, and she had started having seizures about a year ago, and was really struggling with work and her employer and really concerned about the implications that would have for family dynamics and caring for her young child. We had Adam, who was a teenager, and he was living with his parents, really struggling to feel independent and confident, and wanting to go and study and move out, but not knowing how to manage that process, feeling a little bit overprotected by his family. And we also had Richie, who had had epilepsy for quite a long time, and was struggling with medication and wasn't responding to much. And I guess was feeling like he was sort of at the point of giving up on trying to figure out how to support himself. And that most of all, the thing that he kind of needed to do was look at confidence and sort of emotional well-being. So together, those 3 personas kind of discussed the arrangements of the indicators and, of course, the experiences. But it really helped having these characters to talk about. So it wasn't abstract, it was really practical. And then we also developed some visuals so that we could have a look at what visually people responded to. So we were looking at some other websites and toolkits and what helped people feel like they could trust a toolkit or a resource, a digital resource. And the things that people really responded to well were the voices and the personal experiences of others. Inspirational or fun activities. So a lot of people reference kind of meditation apps like Mind, and also the security of something like an NHS website that feels very qualified. So we were looking at a combination of these different tones and using those personas and those lived experiences. Yes, just 2 to add there. There was some more about a directory of services. A lot of people just wanted to see what services were available to them. So you'll see when you look at the toolkit, it's sort of borrowed from a lot of different kinds of platforms to find something in the middle. So all of this really helped us design these specifications. Again, you'll just see these tables become these almost like consolidation points where we can agree on the brief, which keeps evolving throughout the process. But we realized that the primary feature essentially needed to be relatable stories from real people, not clinical advice that felt sort of from a top-down perspective. And so where possible, that was essentially what we prioritized. And again, you'll see kind of the tone that people talked about. They said it's got to be not dull and boring. It's got to bring a bit of brightness and lift your spirits. I think someone said, yeah, not formal or clinical. This is something users need to be able to control for themselves. But also that kind of message of don't push yourself too far, try things. So it's that kind of confidence building and positive voice. So you'll see from our design brief, that's very much what Lizzie sort of ran with and took into the visualization and the digital design of it. And I guess for us, it was really important to clarify who the users and the use cases were going to be. And again, this was agreed with everyone throughout the focus groups, but that it would be for people with epilepsy at all stages of their journey when looking for guidance, but also connection. Obviously, that's your primary audience. But also practitioners and clinicians when making referrals for people with epilepsy. So again, could this be a centralized space, resource, a point, an anchor point in that journey? And also for families, friends, and carers. So anyone around someone with epilepsy, for them to try and understand what's going on and how to help. And sometimes that person may be searching on behalf of the person that they're supporting. So we really needed to test the resource against all of these use cases. Could each of these people get what they needed from it? So that took us into our kind of evaluation and the handover of the toolkit. Again, you'll see our kind of journey there, which was very much about launching a live Figma prototype. So that's a tool that you can use to make a draft version of a toolkit. And that was the version that we used to test with those sort of primary audiences that you saw earlier. So we sent that out with a survey, and then we got people to use the toolkit over a series of weeks. I think it was about 6 weeks people were using it. And then we would prompt them to check back in and reflect via the survey. How were they finding it? What was missing? What needed to be refined? So you'll see that was our kind of first prototype on the right. And we did a kind of clinical review, the testing survey, and then again, a lived experience and a practitioner focus group. So we did a lot of testing with the toolkit in this form. Yes, I think this was also one of those challenging processes where everything got lots of tiny little tweaks and changes over the course of 6 weeks. So yeah, but we needed to make sure that we were getting it right. And just to say a little bit about the survey. So this was really interesting because I think what we found from the survey was that a lot of people would use the toolkit and then say, oh, this was great. However, something's missing. And they would add into it. So a lot of people were actually using the evaluation and testing survey to contribute more tools and resources. And so this evaluation process actually became more of a co-production process. But it was great because so many people, in the last question would offer a personal story, or they would offer some advice and guidance or more links to tools and resources. So it kind of grew through the survey itself, which was amazing. I would say, maybe just one thing to pause on there, because we had the personas, so those 3 characters that we introduced earlier, a lot of people would offer advice to that character because it was someone that they could, I guess, connect with, or the stories in there were of people that related to people that they knew or they remembered or that they could think of. So there was a lot of guidance that was aimed towards those characters, those personas. And I think that became quite a nice dialogue between everybody who'd been involved. Just to say a little bit about the the evaluation, I would say the indicators, if anybody in the future is looking to do evaluation of self-management in this way, the indicators became really helpful. This was a sort of midpoint in helping us dig into what was and wasn't working. So for example, the toolkit was really helping us figure out what support was available, but not so good for improving well-being. So we had to go back in and have a look at what was missing. So again, I would say the indicators became really good evaluation metrics throughout the process. And then the last thing that we did was maybe just reflecting back to some of those earlier comments about the language. So we kind of took out anything that actually said self-management and tried to replace it with the types of activities that people were trying to do. So we added a search function, which in a way is for people to look for feeling in control or feeling confident. And that's a way to search through the toolkit. So it's much more focused on the types of actions that people want to actually undertake rather than using self-management language up front. Okay. And then I would say, I think this is my last slide here. But our final deliverables, there's quite a lot on this slide here, but there was a lot of other things that had to be delivered alongside the toolkit to make sure that it had the longevity and could be sort of continuously used. So obviously we had the toolkit, but we also had comms for launching it. So, messaging for sharing it. We had guidance for how to manage the toolkit. It's quite difficult to continually update a digital tool. So there's a lot of guidance there for how to manage it. Lizzie did an amazing job of creating lots of illustrations. So there's a bank of illustrations so that more tools can be added in the future. And then a sort of evaluation report as well. So there's a couple of things that go on in the background just to help position it.
Testimonies, the co-design experience and benefits of the toolkit.
We're here today with two of the co-design partners for the Scottish Epilepsy Toolkit, and we'll be discussing the benefits of the toolkit, the process of designing and building the toolkit, and what we would like to see happening as a result. Hi, my name's Sam Begbie. I used to be the Support Self-Management project worker here at Quarrier's Epilepsy Centre.
Hi, I'm Rachel Lone and I am a peer facilitator at Quarriers for the Lifestyle Support Management. Okay,
Rachel, what was it like being part of the co-design element of the toolkit?
Well, it was exciting because there's nothing else really like this, and you can just tell how much it means to this charity because they're getting the opinions of patients who suffer with epilepsy, and I think that's very important.
You came to the very first session and that was all about like generating ideas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We looked at the experience of a person with epilepsy from diagnosis to like later on, and yeah, you're contributing ideas to that.
Yeah, because how you feel and the support that you need can be very different at different stages of your life and diagnosis, or just where you are, how severe your epilepsy is affecting your life at a certain time. So you do need different things at different times, and it was good to brainstorm about what those could be.
Yeah, exactly. And then like further down the line, it was like really, we're missing out a couple of stages, but it was really kind of testing out like the toolkit itself, like in terms of use for a person like with epilepsy, in terms of like the quality of the advice, to the point that like your ideas and your thoughts and your words are, you know, literally on there.
Yeah, we thought it would be good to put the words on the website because a lot of people, epileptics, will look at that and might feel understood by certain quotes, because there's certain things that people without long-term health conditions just won't understand, and that's okay. But it's really good to know that there are people out there who do understand and have been going through what you go through. And there's a community that you can reach out to and that can help.
And do you think, so that's like a really good benefit of the resource, that you know, you can see that there's people that understand and are going through similar things. Are there any other like benefits, do you think, like of the resource?
Yes, well, again, I said about community, and that even just having a wee read, it can make you feel less alone in your health struggles.
And that
it definitely made me feel like I was doing something to help, which I really appreciated. I've been out of commission for a long time, haven't worked in about 5 years because I can't, because of my health. So being able to help with a project like this was really important to me, and made me feel like I was doing something important, and that it's special, it's close to my heart. So I benefited from it personally. We spoke about not only helping people with epilepsy, but the people around them who often don't have support. And that maybe there could be somewhere for them to reach out to, because epilepsy, when you see it, it can be very scary for someone who doesn't have epilepsy and for people who do. So speaking to other people who know someone, have someone they love with epilepsy, are carers for people with epilepsy, and speaking about how they feel together was an idea that was thrown out, that was put in, because we recognise the impact that this condition can have not only on our own lives, but on the people around us.
Hello, my name's Yvonne McLaughlin, and I was, first of all, a resident at Quarriers twice, and became involved in the lifestyle management course with Sam, and thought it was the most valuable thing I had done since I had become unwell 6 years ago. And I think to do these toolkits for not only epilepsy, but for a large range would be valuable. It lets people have access. I see my consultant once a year. Now that's not enough. So to have a toolkit to go on and look for answers or speak to people and get back and forth with them is so valuable when the consultant can only see you once a year. So to be able to go on and see the quotes from people that completely understand, that say, oh yes, I hate that as well, or that really annoys me, and people don't understand. The toolkit, it's there to help. It's there to answer your questions. Some of these people that were in Quarrier said, well, I only see my consultant once a year. I don't have a lifeline. I don't have somebody to phone. I don't have somebody to ask, is this normal? What can I do to help me with benefits, because I can no longer work? There's answers on the toolkit to help you, to point you in the right direction with all of those things.
The process was very worthwhile. It didn't take a lot of time, and it was mostly in person for me, which I really appreciated, because I do have photosensitive epilepsy and struggle with screens. So it was intimate, and you really felt listened to. And the speed that they wrote at when they're listening to everyone's views and what you think could help, you just thought, these people mean business. These people want to help me. They want to help people. And it was quite inspiring, actually. It was
Inspiring's a great word.
Yeah.
That is a good word. And empowering.
Empowering.
It's empowering to be able to help, to think you might help someone else, that you have the ability within yourself. It's not just a problem, but you have the ability to try and help someone else.